thanks again for sitting down and chatting with me, man.
My pleasure.
Yeah, especially
thanks for
after
having us on the program.
on the program. Yeah, little YouTube social media action, man.
Great.
Yeah, especially after coming back from Raleigh. What was it? Just you were saying it was last night that you got back in from?
Yeah, last night we our MountainTrue team went down to Raleigh for some meetings in the General Assembly, mostly on hurricane recovery, House Bill 47, the Hurricane Helene disaster relief bill. Our hope is to bring some funding back to Western North Carolina for projects like stream debris removal, which we've been really focused on since the storm, but also funding for dam removal, dam repair, things like our perennial mission, public access, stream health, that kind of thing. And, involves meeting with elected officials, policymakers, their staff, and then agency staff, folks like the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality, leadership change over there. They've got a new director in Reed Wilson we're excited about. And, just it's important for our organization to be in those meetings, to be a voice for Western North Carolina. And it helps MountainTrue's mission to protect clean water. And
so it sounds like we're trying to get that process in place to have these environmental priorities, especially with stream restoration at the state level. It really takes a lot of these different relationships to really see meaningful action put in place.
Absolutely.
And so the state of that bill, I think you were saying that it just passed the House and has to go through the Senate as well.
That's right. So House Bill 47 passed the House yesterday, the day before, and then next step, will go to the Senate. And then there's something called conference or crossover where the Senate will make tweaks or changes, and then we'll discuss and passes the Senate, will go to the governor's desk, and then we'll go from there. Yeah, it's a long process, but that's the wheels of democracy turning.
Yeah. So seeing the sausage get made firsthand.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. And it's very interesting. I encourage all folks to go and be a part of it. Every chance to go. The public can sit on different committee meetings, or they can attend. Watch the assembly from the gallery. But it's fascinating. Yep. And then I found that most elected officials are delighted to meet with their constituents, and you can also reach your elected officials, what we call in district, but back home. They all have offices in their home counties, and you can arrange a meeting.
I mean, that's one of the great things too, just about folks at the state level, just how much easier it is to be able to reach them in person and talk to them. I think that's a real advantage to really get involved locally and statewide with this kind of work.
And the grassroots advocacy, it's always helpful for members and businesses here in the High Country to have those relationships, or to to help push that message forward, because it can be distilled if they hear from the same environmentalists all the time, but the broader community appeal to and support for these issues is so important.
Now, on the specific issue that you care about with these stream restorations and that as it relates to that with hurricane recovery, what is maybe in the bill specifically that you guys were really interested in getting passed? And I guess what does that look like with trying to get some of these efforts funded at the state level?
Sure. So things that we're particularly interested in the House bill is funding for debris removal, right? So as many people know, the Army Corps is conducting large-scale debris removal in many of our western counties. That work's underway now, and that's for large items like cars, propane tanks, things like that. Also, large woody debris. I believe there's just an overwhelming amount of debris. So I think this work is ongoing. One of the things that MountainTrue is doing is been conducting volunteer cleanups since the storm. We've hired a full-time cleanup coordinator, which is new for us, but a guy whose focus is just debris removal. And then through the NC Works program, the Department of Commerce, we're hiring folks and putting them to work to clean up trash, right? So we're kind of transitioning from a volunteer scope of effort to paying folks. Kind of the target demographic for these short-term paid positions is, say, out of work displaced folks, like thinking fishing guides, rafting guides, folks who lost efficiency season during Helene or missed opportunities. But we don't think that as much as we love our robust volunteer base, we're ready to meet the moment with, scaling up.
That's interesting. So the need is so much that you really have to move from these volunteer efforts to actually give people some sort of financial incentive to really help them.
Right.
And I think the aspect of what you're saying about maybe some of, I don't know, some river guys or some of these folks who rely on the kind of local fly fishing industry as it relates to tourism.
Right.
So some of those people potentially have an opportunity to get involved with this and really put their effort forward in getting the streams cleaned up.
Absolutely. So our rivers are so vital. Not only the ecological health is so important to us at MountainTrue and Watauga Riverkeeper, but we understand that the rivers are a vital economic resource to the high country as well. So these folks, these river-based businesses, have a stake in keeping the river clean. And
Absolutely.
many of them lost their kind of that core work. Like the busy time, that fall fishing season, tourism season. We missed out on a lot of that in the high country during the initial stages of recovery.
Yeah.
So our hope is to get these rivers clean and safe and open for recreation tourism this season. But I think having a economic financial incentive, paying people to get us back out there, will have a good impact for our community and for our river.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very important piece of it. But just maybe going back a little bit, when we're looking at MountainTrue overall, and specifically what you do,
right?
I think you might have one of the coolest, if not the coolest job. You at least have one of the best job titles: the Riverkeeper, the River Steward, the River Watcher.
Yeah,
I guess you could call it. But going back a little bit with not only Watauga Riverkeeper, but also MountainTrue as a whole, just what is y'all's main mission, and maybe even outside of hurricane recovery and stream recovery, what are some of the main aspects that y'all really focus on?
Oh, wonderful question. So MountainTrue is a regional nonprofit. We cover the Southern Blue Ridge. That's West North Carolina, a little bit of North Georgia, Eastern Tennessee. We're home to 5 Riverkeeper programs, but we also we have a public lands team. We have a kind of a community planning arm. We call it Healthy Communities, but our core focuses are clean water, healthy communities, and resilient forests. So that we employ everything from planning staff, folks who are like we call it the Appalachian Design Center, but they do things like community planning, and that's things like addressing urban planning, housing density, housing shortage, things like that. But then we have a public lands team where they are largely concerned with the health of our public lands. That's things like addressing non-native invasive species like the hemlock woolly adelgid and the emerald ash borer. So that's treating these trees on public lands, but it's also things like monitoring timber sales, things like that. And then our kind of my core work is in the clean water team. That's where our Riverkeepers are housed, and that's addressing things like water quality, dam removal, public access. We use things like the Clean Water Act and NEPA and the Endangered Species Act as tools to advance our clean water mission.
And you mentioned, I guess I know what you call it, like a guild or the League of Riverkeepers.
Oh yeah,
it almost sounds like the Avengers of Riverkeepers, right?
That's great. It's called the Waterkeepr Alliance, and the Waterkeepr Alliance is it's a global group of member nonprofits. About 406 members, I think, across the world. So the Waterkeepr movement was founded in New York and has grown globally. So we have member organizations across North America, United States, Canada, Mexico, but also throughout Central and South America, Asia, Africa, and Europe. And then one of the fun things about being a Waterkeepr, is we're all members with a voting voice, but we all, kind of one of our core initiatives is growing the movement. So oftentimes Waterkeepers will travel to new groups, Waterkeepr affiliates who are seeking to become member organizations. So we've gone to, colleagues and I've gone to places like Kenya and Uganda to help start new Riverkeepr programs. So that's either sharing resources like equipment or providing training, things like that. So the collaborative nature of the Waterkeepr Alliance is part of its strength. So, if I have an issue in my watershed, I can hop on the, kind of the Waterkeepr listserv and say, hey, I have this issue in my watershed. Like, does anyone have any suggestions or experience? And then you'll get a question back.
Okay.
One of your, Waterkeepr colleagues or mentors would be like, hey, we had this issue in our watershed, and here are some potential solutions, or here's a subject matter expert I can connect you with. And that's fantastic. So I have things like, Waterkeepr conferences and summits where we get together and discuss the issues. Or so during Helene, early days, when we were doing everything from search and rescue to water quality monitoring. We had waterkeepers from across North Carolina and kind of across the Gulf and Atlantic states coming providing. Over here off camera, we've got in these boxes are all water quality supplies we call lab consumables, but things like reagents and sterile bottles for testing water. Mm-hmm. But we have a great deal of water quality testing to be done to see what's the state of our water, right? So we had waterkeepers come from across the southeast and the east coast to come help, bringing supplies, things like food, water, medicine, but also lab equipment, boats, things like that. So that's kind of
when I first asked that question, I think I was thinking of I think there's like 5 of y'all like in the local region. I was thinking you were going to talk about that, but you're like, no, we have a whole global alliance.
Oh yeah, it's a whole global deal. But so yesterday I had the good fortune of being Raleigh in the General Assembly. We have a deputy director, great journey. He's the past Green Riverkeeper, but he was general counsel for the Waterkeepr Alliance, so deep policy and legal experience. We also have our French Rod Riverkeeper there and our Bread Riverkeeper. So the issues are sometimes unique to your watershed, like our watershed, the Watauga River and Upper New River Basin here in the High Country is a little different than say the French Broad, which is more urban, has more industry. And those issues could be different than say the issues further east on the Cape Fear or the Haw or the Neuse, but we all get together and share ideas or policy updates, and then come up with like Waterkeepers North Carolina, that working group. We come up with kind of statewide policy or budget goals, and then use kind of the collective, amplify the collective voices of our membership to advocate on an issue.
So I guess when you have something like a once in 100-year or once in a lifetime storm that happens,
or once in 5,000 years or something, like something unprecedented, like they came to help, they answered the call, and they stayed as long as they needed us. So they did things like set up relief stations, in Watauga County and in Burnsville and in Asheville, and they're really on providing hot food and water. But then we did things like one of our expertise is we all have these water quality labs, right? And tremendous capacity to process water quality samples. So we partnered with our State Department of Health and Human Services, who had limited capacity during the storm to process drinking water samples, so testing people's private wells. And we couldn't have done that without the support of kind of a statewide network.
And that was something that you all were doing in the immediate, I guess maybe after the search and rescue component, but after that phase where you guys were going out and testing wells and making sure those were safe for people to drink. And I guess some of the equipment you just pointed to were some of the partnerships are really important in ensuring that people had healthy water in their homes.
Right. And I think one of the real strengths of Western North Carolina, one of the things I really love about it is the community self-reliance, generosity of spirit, kind of resilience, where, we needed supplies, we needed help. And then, these people brought their subject matter expertise. We could turn them loose in the lab. They could take additional samples back to their lab. So, we've got Riverkeepers, in Charlotte with the Catawba. They've got an office in Marion. We've got, folks down in Raleigh. We got folks.
You guys really are the Avengers.
It feels that way. I feel very fortunate. But then other groups in the High Country lend a hand. Like there's this group called Wine to Water that we had previously partnered with. They provided us kind of whole house or community scale water filter solutions. Like I mentioned, we were helping the Upper Nile Riverkeeper in Uganda and Kenya. We're talking about, hey, what's the best way to provide clean water to a village, and they're like, oh, well, we know. And like,
Yeah,
they're like, here's
yeah.
how you do a well, here's how you do this. But it turns out they're based here in Boone. So during Helene, there was no lag time. Like, we'd get a well sample and we'd say, hey, unfortunately, your well's contaminated, but here's a filter system, you know. You can still drink your well water if you run it through this filter. And then Wind Water, I don't know how many thousands of filters they distributed, but it was incredible.
Yeah, because I know they do that work all over the world.
Right. But to have them right here with the warehouse ready to go,
huge.
I mean, that was very fortunate.
Yeah. And I got to spend some time living in Brazil for a little bit. And one of the culture shocks for me when I was down there is that you couldn't drink the tap water. Like if you were a local, maybe you were accustomed to it. But that was kind of a shock to me just because, you know, we're very fortunate.
Right. I think we kind of take that for granted.
Yeah. You can go to just about any restroom, and I don't know if everyone does this, but you get a little glass of tap water, and you don't have to worry about it. You know?
Right. And then here, you know, one thing we have in the Southern Appalachians is abundance of water, right?
Right.
You know, we've got surface water, but a lot of our communities, once you get outside of town, are still on well water. Like at home, you know, I have a well, and all my neighbors do too, and most of the folks out in the county are on well water, and generally it's some of the best water in the world, you know. But you have to make sure, you know, something when it gets inundated with flood water, you know, the flood water was carrying all kinds of contaminants, things like flood caused tremendous damage to infrastructure, so things like wastewater treatment plants, you know, drinking water in tanks, septic systems, things like that. But then also the runoff from the road, you know, so things like brake dust, oil and gas lubricants, things like that. So it's important to test these wells to just be sure. And you know, most of the well samples we tested, I think about 30% of our well tests came back as contaminated. So we were able to quickly get them solutions, you know, with the Wind Water filters, and I think that was wonderful. And then through this Riverkeepr network, we were able to distribute them, right? So you know, we could Wind Water. They have a tremendous distribution hub, but they set up, you know, kind of community-based filter systems in places like Asheville and Burnsville and Yancey. We could also, when we were sending out the well sample kits, we could also send out filters. So I'm big on like, don't have a problem without a solution teed up. So you can be like, I didn't want to be like, hey, sorry, bud, your well's contaminated. You know, help yourself to this pallet of bottled water, because I think we've spent the last decade or more discussing the problems with plastic. So we want to be like, here's a sustainable long-term solution. So I think that was kind of a highlight. I hate to say there's a highlight of a very sad, tragic disaster, but I took a lot of comfort in there being community-based solutions.
I think really the silver lining, the thing that really inspired me when I was covering that for the local paper, was just seeing just so many people just get involved and just stop anything they were doing personally and really jump into the opportunity to help their neighbors. And I talked to some folks, especially like out in the farm communities, and they were like, you know, we didn't, you know, it's pretty rural, spaced out area, and like we didn't really know a lot of our neighbors. So when the disaster hit, like we got to know everyone within the you know 10, 20-mile radius that lived around us.
I love that. And then one of the areas that our family was involved in, we set up one of our sample collection sites, you know, where people could bring their well water, was out at the State Line Resource Center out at the Zionville Ramp Company. And our daughter had been going out there to take skateboard lessons for years from Ashley. She was the past director.
Isn't that so cool? That's just out there.
And she just turned her. You should, if you haven't been, you should go. But it's this beautiful warehouse space with, you know, like skateboard ramps and stuff. But they pushed the ramps back and set up, you know, like a relief hub where there was, you know, hot food from the World Central Kitchen, but they had, you know, anything you could want, you know, medical supplies and food, but they had. Then we had the Wind Water kits out there, little MountainTrue tents set up. So you could bring your well kit and get a filter, but you could also go in but it was like a gathering place for neighbors. But you saw that kind of all across the high country and across the region, you know, with the Summit Pickleball here in Boone, and then churches and volunteer fire departments all became kind of these central hubs where neighbors would gather. And I like what you said about people deepening those relationships and meeting new folks. And that's, I think it's one of the things that's really special about our region is that people help each other.
Yeah. I remember seeing the Wine to Water kids at the State Line Center, and went out to talk with the Wine to Water folks because they had their distribution site, I guess right behind Alliance Church. And I got out there, and they had brought in there was an ambulance that was coming in, and I was like, oh, let's hope everything's all right. But then we get in there, and I didn't see anyone getting loaded into the ambulance. Instead, they were actually loading food and supplies and dog food. And I started talking to the guy, and he was like, oh, yeah, we've been working on this ambulance here locally. And was based out of Asheville, and we actually just got it fixed, and we're going to deliver it back to their EMTs out there, and might as well fill it up with supplies, you know.
Yeah. No empty trucks coming up the mountain. I like that.
So from going from the response to the well testing, I know that you, I guess, kind of have gone back into, I guess, your main work of cleaning and conserving, preserving the waterways. I think I just recently saw on your social media where I think y'all were doing some stream bank restoration this week. What does that work look like with the Watauga River and the local waterways in the past couple of months as that has been a renewed focus for you?
Sure. Hurricane Helene certainly changed the scope of our work. You know, we like to do river cleanups, but it's a great way to organize volunteers, meet new people, invest in your waterways. But we had kind of a policy solution agenda. We have our trash trout program, kind of the passive litter collection devices. But we really had to scale up the debris removal because just the significant amount of debris and trash in the waterways. But we're kind of settling into more of our core work, things like stream restoration. It's live staking season. It's one of my favorite things to do as a riverkeeper, and it's what a live stake is. It's a dormant cutting of living trees. So we plant a lot of native pollinators, things like elderberry, silky willow, silky dogwood, 9-bark, sycamore, things like that. And there's a wonderful local nursery called Foggy Mountain Nursery up in Hilton Creek, where we source a lot of, we get these bundles of live stakes that they harvest. You can also harvest them from past projects. So what you do is you take, about a 18-inch slip of, it's a cutting a stick of sorts, and you put it into the riverbank while it's dormant, and then it wakes up in the springtime, becomes a tree. We've been doing that for many years in the high country, but one of the impacts of the storm is tremendous scouring of our riverbanks, right? So erosion and sediment is a significant concern to the health of the waterway, right? So getting that riparian cover, that area from the river's edge to the top of the stream bank is so vital to the health of waterway because it provides shade to the stream to keep it cool, but also filters stormwater and prevents erosion. So we've been leaning into that this season, right? Organizing volunteers to get out and plant with us. But what you may have recently seen on social media is kind of a more structured stream restoration. We're bringing an engineer and stream restoration professionals to
backhoes and
excavators. And so this is permitted work. So you get a permit, get through the process with kind of your local planning department erosion and soil control permit, and then you coordinate with our state North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality. But what we have is kind of a designed restoration where they're shaping the riverbank back. One of the impacts of flooding is you see these kind of steeper, heavily incised banks. What we're doing is kind of grading it back, and then we'll go back and spread native kind of grass seed, and then you plant the trees along there to stabilize the bank and provide shade. And then kind of at a watershed scale restoration planning effort right now where you identify the areas that need it and then go back and plant.
Yeah. And especially this is kind of the main thing I want to get to with what's coming up with these volunteer efforts.
Right.
I believe y'all have one coming up on March 7th.
That's right.
To get people who are passionate about this issue, that they can come and get involved with these cleanup efforts themselves. They don't need a backhoe or an excavator. They just need 2 pairs of hands and a willing heart.
Yeah, a bucket of seed, a couple plantings, maybe some work gloves or waders that we can provide. But yes, that's a great question. Look, we'd love to get our volunteers and our MountainTrue members out on our waterways. So if folks want to get involved, they can check our social media channels, Watauga Riverkeeper, MountainTrue. So they're region-wide volunteer efforts, and they're all listed on our website, MountainTrue.org. where you can, click the link in any of our social media bios for a volunteer opportunity. So there are opportunities to work here locally in the high country. We've got upcoming debris, trash cleanups. We have the live staking work days as well, and those are being held on the Watauga and New Rivers, but also areas like the French Broad and the Broad River and the Green River. So all across the region, there are ways to get involved, and we love to see folks out on the river.
Yeah, and I think the one on the 7th, that's the Boone Greenway
That's
Trail.
correct. Mm-hmm.
And I think that's important because I think that's, maybe if you're a new person or someone who's just now getting familiar with this issue, that's an area that is very easily accessible, but it's also very visible, where you have people from all over the country that come here. And so I think that's an important area because it's so out of the open and used by so many people here locally.
Right. There's nowhere in the high country that doesn't need some love and attention. But our focus has been on a lot of our public lands. So our local land trusts and local governments have done a tremendous job providing these public access points. So things like the Boone Greenway or Blue Ridge Conservancy's kind of their Middle Fork Greenway, and then the Watauga River Paddle Trail, New River Paddle Trail. There are all these wonderful sections of the river that are open to the public. One of our focuses has been cleaning up the trash and removing the debris, and planting live stakes where we can to preserve kind of the health and the natural beauty of these spaces, so people can get out and reconnect with the river. And because I don't know, for me, the river has always been like a place of peace and adventure where I go for renewal. Right. And then kind of after the storm, I found I was like a little overwhelmed with feelings when I went to the river. So now it's a place of people can give back. And clean up. So, but we're very fortunate in the high country to have so many conservation groups invested in protecting these spaces or providing public resources. So there are a lot of these efforts are collaborative, groups coming together to clean things up. Because the scope of the problem, both, in Helene response, but day in, day out, year after year, the collaborative solutions are the best. So we're very delighted to be able to provide an opportunity for folks to come out and get involved, because we couldn't do it without volunteers and community support. We've got a great team. My colleagues Hannah and Emma have been spearheading these kind of volunteer work days and done a tremendous job. And we would love to see folks out there. Yeah, and people can get involved to really help turn these places back into these places of rest and renewal that you mentioned. Yeah, and so people, I think the Boone Greenway is a great place for people to start, a good entry point. But it also sounds like there's also other opportunities to maybe get to some harder reach places here in the county, then maybe also outside the county and more across the region, because it seems like MountainTrue is also has other opportunities for maybe people to get on the French Broad or out to Asheville or some of these other harder to reach areas. And it's great. And now that the roads are more open, travel's a little safer, there's a little more clarity, like 221 back open through North Cove, and we've been taking the kind of the Spruce Pine Burnsville way, but there's opportunities all across the region. Our John Stamper, our cleanup coordinators, organizing things along the north and south toe. We've got an upcoming work day with Lees McRae College on the Elk River. So there's opportunities to get involved across the region. Like I'm gonna head down the mountain to the cleanup at Silverline Park in Woodfin on the French Broad to work with some colleagues, and it's I think it's an impactful way to see other waterways and kind of meet other folks in the community, because there's a nice social aspect to cleaning up. There's a sense of accomplishment and camaraderie that comes with cleaning up, and sometimes there's a social aspect. Folks will go out. And that's a great aspect of it too, to really get out and meet new people. I know last weekend the cleanup on Elk River in Banner Elk got canceled on account of the snow. Right. So just on a whim, I heard word of a tree planting that Foothills Conservancy was doing, and I went down and got involved. And it was only just like a 2 or 3 hour workday, but immediately, you make like 5, 10, 12 new friends doing that, because you immediately have these connections with people. I'll tell you what, man, they had one lady out there who was,
digging holes and doing the plantings, and she had her baby on her back the entire time she was doing that. And I was just like, she's like Superwoman. I was like so impressed that
I love
she
that.
was out there kicking butt like that.
And it's family affair. Kids are welcome and encouraged to come. But I have 2 young children myself. We've got a daughter named Willow who's 8 years old, and she's been playing trees since she was a baby. In my waders or on Betty's back, and we have photos of her planting trees as a baby. But now we can go back and say, trees that are now taller than her, and say, we helped plant this. So I think there's something very gratifying in planting a tree. For me, cleaning up trash is important, and it's all well and good. But there'll always be more trash. But planting trees can be like a lasting, tangible thing. So I always feel a sense of gratification after a day of planting live stakes with a group of volunteers, because you can come back years later. And it was touring our watersheds after the storm. I was very encouraged to see a lot of our live stakes made it through. Because they native adapt to the environment.
So I know a lot of people, when they have kids, and over the years they you might get the kid to stand next to the door frame, and they have the marks, where they're grown over the years. But I guess in your household, it's more of a matter of, let's go back to this tree we planted.
Let's see how tall you are compared to this silky willow or silky dogwood. That sounds good. And I think these cleanup and restoration activities are kind of all ages, and they're across.
They're family friendly.
Family friendly across. This interesting time in the world, seeing people from all walks of life come together.
Absolutely.
Across socioeconomic or political divides to work on a shared resource, which is our rivers and streams and forests. Brings me a lot of hope. It's very encouraging to see folks tirelessly giving back.
Now you mentioned the Hurricane Recovery Bill at the state level, volunteer efforts, storm cleanup. But another thing that y'all have been pretty involved in is this Hellbender classification on the endangered species list. And we have the beautiful Hellbender mural here in downtown, just around the corner. What has the work been like for yourself and MountainTrue as that has progressed? Because I know that's also a very collaborative effort between a lot of different stakeholders and interested parties.
Sure. So status of the Hellbender, that's an excellent question. So something like an Endangered Species Act listing, which is what we've been working on for years, is certainly a collaborative effort. So the United States Fish and Wildlife Service collects the data, makes a decision recommendation, but all kinds of grassroots groups and scientists have been working on the Hellbender issue for decades, right? So groups like Riverkeepers, kind of across their known range, but then groups like the Center for Biological Diversity, who is involved in this mural project. They have their Endangered Species Mural Project, and Dalton George, who's our mayor pro tem here in Boone, but also shout out to Dalton George, one of my favorites. But he also works with the Endangered Species Coalition, which is kind of a national group working on all the endangered species, right? So advocacy and political acumen and things like that. But also we're very fortunate here in Boone. We're kind of a Hellbender hotspot, but we have a wonderful research university here, Appalachian State University, and Dr. Mike Gangloff and his team has been working on Hellbender monitoring for decades. So dam removal is kind of a core piece of our work at MountainTrue, and with these projects, it's an opportunity for what we call biological monitoring, right? So we're removing the Wards and Shoals Mill Dam. We contracted with Dr. Mike Gangloff and his research cluster, who's been studying Hellbender distribution, both their habitat and numbers. I think he has decades of data. He's been a long time. He's also a mussel expert, but bringing in other groups where you have knowledge gaps to strengthen the project, I think is a wonderful practice. But they were Mike and his research cluster would come out, and we conduct these Hellbender surveys. Assessing their habitat. Hellbenders live and thrive in the kind of the rocky cobble of our clear, cold flowing streams, right? And dams are a significant impediment to Hellbender habitat, both by habitat fragmentation, right? The Hellbenders downstream of a dam can't connect up with the Hellbenders upstream, so that's kind of a genetic integrity issue, but also a dam will, kind of slow down the water, warm it up, reduce the dissolved oxygen, contribute pollution, things like that. So one of the wonderful things about a dam removal project is it's an opportunity to expand the base of knowledge on what happens to a river after you remove a dam. In this case, we removed some Hellbender. We relocated some Hellbenders from kind of the Shoals Mill area of the Watauga, and we moved them downstream to the former site of the Wards Mill dam removal. So it was kind of an experiment on how quickly does habitat recover, right? So when there's a dam, one of the natural functions of a river or stream is sediment transport, right? But a dam will block that sediment, will kind of pile up behind it and create a shallow, muddy, kind of degraded habitat for things like fish, Hellbenders, mussels, macroinvertebrates. But when you remove the dam, the sediment goes away, expose that rocky cobble habitat. So we relocated the Hellbenders there as kind of a pilot project to see how quickly do Hellbenders recover. So we're interested to track that over the years. But back to your original question on the Endangered Species Act. So we collected all this data, made comments. So there's a public comment period during an endangered species discussion, so the public can weigh in, and subject matter experts like research scientists and policy groups like MountainTrue or the Endangered Species Coalition or the Center for Biological Diversity can, or the Amphibian and Reptile Conservancy, kind of these groups who are their deep experience and knowledge base can provide.
So has it been a situation where you've been seeing these populations locally have been decreasing or leveling off to such a degree that it really prompted this kind of action? Or?
I'd say this action that the endangered species protection. So we've seen an 80% decline in Hellbender populations across the range, and there's some variation locally. So what that means is, say the primary threat to Hellbenders and their population is habitat loss, degradation. So that's things like, I described their ideal habitat, and you can see it for yourself on the murals, that clean rocky cobble, but as through development or deforestation, it's silt and sediment runoff, right? But it's also water chemistry changes. So places where you see a robust, healthy population of Hellbenders are things like forested lands, right? There's a direct correlation between canopy and forest cover to Hellbender health and stream health, right? So somewhere like the Pisgah National Forest, Hellbender hotspot, right? Healthy, clean water based on the amount of available tree cover. Watauga River, historically home to a lot of Hellbenders, right? But then we're seeing fragmented populations. So you have a lot of Hellbenders in the headwaters, but the further downstream you get, your Hellbender numbers start decreasing as water quality degrades, right? So things like tree loss or eroded banks, siltation, sedimentation, things like that, human disturbances, road projects, runoff, things like that. So that's one of the reasons live staking is so core to the mission of MountainTrue. Is like the best thing you can do for a river is keep that riparian corridor healthy.
I'm sorry, keep the
riparian corridor, and that riparian is that area between the water's edge and the top of the stream. Kind of that forested buffer. Is the best thing you can do for that,
and that helps prevent sedimentation or even just other material from getting into the river. So
many benefits. They'll shade the stream, keep the water cool, but that riparian buffer, that healthy vegetated corridor will filter stormwater runoff, but keep some sediment and silt from entering the stream. But it will also, as those roots grow together, they kind of stabilize the bank. Yeah. And
one thing I've talked to people who deal with the Hellbender issue as well is that they say that Hellbenders are one of those indicator species. That if you have a healthy stream, it helps keep a healthy population of Hellbenders, and if you have a healthy population of Hellbenders, you most likely have a healthy stream. So it seems like one of those things that really play into each other quite well.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the Hellbender has captured the public imagination in recent years. So as you said, it is an indicator species, kind of a by monitoring the Hellbender populations, you're also monitoring the health of the river, right? So they're kind of a apex predator in their stream, right? So they feed largely on crawfish, macroinvertebrates, things like that. All things that also are indicators of good water quality. But if you see a decline in a Hellbender population that's well studied, like here in the Watauga River Basin, it's there's a correlation to decline in water quality or decline in stream health. They're also endemic to the Southern Appalachians. Like I think it's very special that the Southern Appalachians are such a hub of biodiversity, right?
Yeah.
The amount of salamanders and native fish and kind of glamour species like the Hellbender that exist nowhere else. They're
they're kind of one of our
special
mascots up here,
right?
Yeah.
There used to be like a little distrust or myth about the Hellbenders. They're secretive. They some largely nocturnal. They're kind of homebodies. They live under these large rocks, so it's a real treat to see one. But now we're like in a rise of popularity. We're seeing Hellbender themed businesses like Save the Hellbender merch. We're seeing them on we have a series Save the Hellbender where we got on hoodies and shirts and cups and stickers and things. But we've seen businesses across the Appalachians named after the Hellbender, which is great. I think bringing them the attention and prominence that is.
There's even a local rugby club that opened not too long ago, and they're called Hellbender Rugby.
Right, there's Hellbender Rugby. There's a Hellbender Fitness. There's a Hellbender Bed and Breakfast. There's a Hellbender Band.
Yeah,
it's great.
That's interesting because you kind of think of places like out in Gatlinburg. You think of black bears as big their mascot out here, but even
a lot of Hellbenders in the Smokies too around Gatlinburg.
I think, it's more like a BRC question. I know we have like the Amphibolite Mountains around here, and I know that's related to, I guess, the rock formations that make up the mountains. But you think of amphibians, and I know that the area we live in has like the highest biodiversity of salamanders and maybe amphibians in general than anywhere else in the world.
It's really special. Also native fish too, and then unique tree species. BRC would be a great group to talk to about this. They have a wonderful desert experience. But we've got the the hardwood cove forest. We've got this kind of altitude northern spruce forest, things like this, and then the river bottom habitat. So diversity of habitats contributes to that that biodiversity that makes this area so special. And then the abundance of clean, cold water is it's certainly worth protecting.
Absolutely. Trying to think of what else I was going to ask. I might have asked you everything.
Do you want to check the question list?
Yeah, let's check the question list.
Let's check the old question list.
Anything else that might be on your mind that might be going on with yourself or MountainTrue that you want to get out to folks?
Great question. So it was wonderful talking with you today, Luke. We'd love to have folks come and volunteer with MountainTrue or any of our Riverkeepr groups. Got a lot of opportunities up here in the high country. MountainTrue is a member organization, so we'd love to have your support. You can join MountainTrue and get involved, invest in clean water, healthy communities, and resilient forests.
Let's do it. That's the plug, man.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, man.
Appreciate you.
Awesome.